Courtney with Ginger Knots here today to talk about how to loosen up in your crochet projects. I used to teach crochet classes, and the number one reason people would rage quit is because their projects were too tight, their shoulders are hunched, they were really tense, trying to get their hook squeezed into too tiny spaces, and that's no fun. You also don't want to end up with a project that's too small because your crochet stitches are much tighter than they should be. Tip number one is to make sure you're inserting your hook all the way. So you can see here on my crochet hook that there is a skinny part, this is an inline hook, and then there's thicker parts. If you're crocheting only on your skinny part, then it's going to be a lot of really tight stitches. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll start by showing you that on some chain stitches. So here I'm just doing some chains, and you can see the throat is right there. That's the skinny part. I did just insert that one pretty far. So here, this one, I'm keeping it down low on the throat, and you can see what a struggle it is to pull that through. When you push your hook through to the larger part, it makes that loop bigger so that your head of your hook can slide through more easily. And you can see as I do that, my chain stitches are larger when I'm using my whole hook than they were in the beginning. Tip number two is to pull up bigger loops. So if you're pulling your loops up nice and tall, you won't experience some of those challenges that you do if you're keeping your loops really low. Let's take a look at that. Now I've got a row of single crochets. I'm going to work into those stitches, and I'm just going to bring my loop to the other side of the stitch, but not really pull up on it. And you can see here again, I'm already arguing with my stitches, and it is frustrating to work with it like this. So again, another one where my loop is really low. I'm not pulling it up very tall. The next two stitches, I'll actually go ahead and pull up my loop. Oh, I'm not going to yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook and pull up a nice sized loop, not too tall, but tall enough that it allows me to slide my hook through pretty easily and seamlessly. This is much less frustrating, and you'll be able to see here that my first two stitches are considerably smaller than my second two stitches. Tip number three is to avoid pulling on the yarn that you have here. I think of this like a guitar string. If it's too tight, the sound isn't going to be right, and if it's too loose, the same thing is going to happen. So if I'm pulling on this too tight, it's going to pull on my stitches and make them smaller. Let's take a look. This is what I mean by the guitar string. So that strand of yarn has a balance between being too tight and being nice and loose enough. It can, of course, be too loose as well. You can see when I take a tug on that, it makes the size of my stitch that I just did perfectly much, much smaller, and that is nearly impossible to work back into when you're making your stitches tight after you've already made them. So here you'll just want to keep it nice and loose, avoid pulling on it so that you don't reduce the size of your stitches. And allowing it to slide easily through your hands is important. How you hold your yarn can dictate how hard you're pulling on that string. Bonus tip number four is just to relax. I know that doesn't help very much, but as you start to feel your shoulders rise and your hands are tense, just to take a nice deep breath, lower your shoulders, relax. Crocheting should be a calming activity, a great way to work out whatever anxiety you're going through in the day. So just to let go of those things and to let your hook and your yarn run smoothly. Let me know in the comments what hurdles you're working to overcome. Subscribe to my channel for more patterns, more tips, and more bad hair days, apparently.